Yes, it's for Nazi shot. Goes around the outside, it's in his team.
Qualified.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. Testing is over all 3 days. Couldn't say that they exactly went off without a hitch.
No, certainly not.
Didn't go off without much excitement either. We're just a few days away from round one in Bahrain. We're a couple days away from potentially hearing some big news about some allegations. That shit was addressed in a press conference, I hear.
Yes, very controversial day two press conference.
Let's get into it. So all 3 days of testing finally wrapped. We got to see the cars on track. We got to see the brand new prototypes, or not prototypes. We got to see the brand new concepts that teams are rolling out. Red Bull taking a big swing with a brand new concept.
Yeah, lots to look forward to this year. A lot we were watching coming into testing. Like you said, teams are making changes. Some of which being Mercedes and McLaren, a couple big changes for them, looking to see who's going to give the fight to Red Bull this year. And unfortunately, off the top, not looking great.
Yeah, day one, it looked like Adrian Newey was punking Mercedes by doing the. I'm not going to call it side pod list, but people keep saying that. It's not side pod list to me. It's a rearranging of the side pods. It's like they took a chunk of the side pod out, I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of changed the aero design of it, but it has less side pod. But it was a little bit of a flex.
Yeah.
To take that similar design and then make it even faster potentially than their car was last year.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that you could point to as to what may make that change, and there's a lot made, a lot of attention paid to side pods, because I think that's like one thing that you notice the most in the different cars and the changes, but it's more about the floor and how, and the suspension, how all that all works together, and then I think the side pods are just factored into that, but
yeah,
it's just the fact that the Red Bull changed some of the side pod doesn't mean that like it's a radically different thing change, I think. But
so you don't think it's as big of a change as the media is making it out to be? Because the way everybody's talking about it, it's like it's this brand new concept.
I mean, it is a little bit in that like they changed, with how much air intake they're taking. It probably points to the fact that they don't need as much air coming in to cool it, the engine and stuff like that, and allows them to have more downforce from that. So I don't know. It's there's a lot to be learned still, because as they're doing this testing, they're running at different run plans. They got different tires, strategies, and they're shaking things out. So it's kind of hard to get exact numbers from what we see throughout testing, but
yeah,
so far looking like they've made improvements on last year. So everybody's kind of a little worried out the gate. I don't know. How much of the testing did you actually...
I didn't get a chance to watch as much testing. I did watch highlights from each day. Like I had started the testing, but they started here at 11 p.m. and they're 4-hour sessions. So I was not going to tune in to watch, 8 drivers putting around the track for 4 hours.
Yeah. It was kind of a slog to get through. I think it was probably over 30 hours of just testing over the 3 days. And
they're like, other than the drain cover coming off, there wasn't that much going on. It was unfortunately it was a little bit of a continuation of last year. Like we were like, oh fuck, man, should we just hand Max Verstappen the championship right now? And then McLaren came out of the gate not looking as hot as everybody wanted to. Like there's some interesting shit that happened, but it just wasn't this tight battle that we all think we were hoping for. Yeah, like every year.
And I wasn't expecting to get any of that in testing, but you want to see the cars out there like pushing to the limit. You got to see at the end of day 2 a little bit of the cars racing each other a little bit.
Yeah, they did that rolling start. That was rad. Yeah. I'm so glad. That looked so sick.
Yeah.
And the fact that the drivers got to do that was probably so fun for them. And they did it after the sun had gone down, so you got to see a full fireworks show.
Yeah.
That was dope. Couple highlights, though, like seeing the Kick Sauber on track for the first time, that beautiful green. I don't know what they were doing with the cameras, if they oversaturated them or if it was just, that bright Middle Eastern sun shining down on it, but it looked unbelievably green.
Yes, the paint on the car is very vibrant.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I loved it. I thought it was beautiful.
But yeah, as we mentioned just a moment ago, day 2 was halted towards the end of the second session because I think it was Charles Leclerc brought up a storm drain cover, which subsequently Lewis Hamilton hit, and then
Lewis hit it, and then it fucked up the undercarriage of his car, and then Lewis hit it. Something fell off the front of his car, and then Charles ran it over, and it messed up the floor of his car, right?
Yeah, something along those lines. So
No. It's wrong. Checo hit it. Checo's the one that pulled it off, no?
Charles pulled it up.
Pulled the drain cover off?
Yeah, and then he hit it on the next lap.
I thought it was Checo that pulled it off.
No, specifically it was Charles. And so that was bringing back memories from Vegas last year, where Ferrari also had got the short end of the stick on that one.
Yeah, it is funny that it's Ferrari over and over again.
Yeah, and then
keeps happening too.
Maybe half an hour into day 3, session stopped again for a drain cover. So a little bit of a frustrating situation. You would think that after, this has happened, I think maybe 5 or 6 times in the history, most recent history at Formula One, where we've had like a drain cover come up and cause some kind of issue or stoppage.
It's cool. It's a good sign that the cars are getting more and more downforce. Their ground effect is just growing and growing. So that's a sign that the cars are getting faster. They're higher performance than they've ever been.
Yeah, well, one of the points that was made was that, with the placement of this storm drain cover that got brought up is actually like off of the track. It's on the outside of the corner. I forget which turn it was. And drivers were just kind of taking a little bit more of the corner and going a little more off in order to get like a better line through that turn. And that just kind of points to that the cars are a little bit more able to ride those curbs and take those extra edges just based off like how they're set up this year. So
those curbs are sharp too. I don't know if you see them. They're jagged, solid concrete.
Yeah.
So that you hit that thing wrong, or your downforce pulls you in too hard, that's gonna eat up the undercarriage of your car like it did, or your tires if you're a high deg team. That's why you see teams like Haas not being able to take lines and be so fucking slow.
Because they have to be more conservative.
They have to be so much more careful in those corners.
Yeah, so I think that this year you may see drivers take a little bit more liberty with the corners, pushing track limits a little bit. So I think that not only, could we see... I think that track limits is going to be a constant story this year, as it was last year.
Yeah.
Like certain tracks are a little bit more difficult, but I think that it's going to be
that's good as long as it's consistent. Just make it consistent. Yeah. Like if you have to put sensors in the car and sensors on at each, couple feet of the track, whatever, to make sure that it's the right call. Like, how they have that supervision in tennis or some shit, whatever, just make it across the board.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we got to see all 10 teams put their cars out on the track. We've heard the drivers give their 2 thoughts. Now I think it'd be a good time for us to go ahead and give our predictions for how we think the constructor standings will play out for 2024. So I think we start from the end of the grid. I'm just going to go out and say I think Haas.
We all know what the answer was going to be.
Is going to go back-to-back 10th place this year.
Yeah.
So started off, I think, a little slow. First day they had some issues with their aero rake and stuff like that, but Magnussen seemingly very optimistic and about how testing went. Gives me a little bit of optimism that they maybe have addressed some of the issues from last year, but I still think that they have a long ways to go, and just the way they've been getting us to tamp down our expectations a little bit. I think
unless they're doing an ultimate sandbagger, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. As of right now, not feeling too confident that
it's not looking good. We also found out a little bit of news that it wasn't a firing from Gunther Steiner. He walked.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to me. It sounded like Gene Haas had fired him over the vision for the team.
Mm-hmm.
But he walked, and I say good for him, because I'm still going to maintain that my disdain for Haas that I've kind of like brought up this season. Them not being America's true team, them keeping Andretti on the outside. And then Drive to Survive Season 6 rolls around, and there's an episode dedicated to Haas, and the sexy, cute little motherfuckers just tug at your heartstrings again and make you want to root for them, but we can't. We can't. They forced Gunther to walk. They drove out a darling of the sport, and they're complacent in being in 10th place. So,
well, like I said a podcast or two ago, that if they get a car to finish in the top 10, I think all will be redeemed. If they get some points, and if it happens earlier on in the season, I think that's where we'll really know. But
if they can get a point this season, I would be surprised.
1 point, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll happen just based off of matter of circumstances. I'm sure they'll get at least a couple points. But I think they need to get it off of merit in order
I could see them bringing up an upgrade package halfway through the season, maybe, and maybe by Spain or Silverstone, maybe the North American run, like Coda. Maybe we'll see a big upgrade package for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did the same shit last year and they qualified very well and then just completely fell off. So who knows with that team, dude? I think they're a waste of space.
All right. So 9th place. I'm kind of torn between two teams.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be either Stake or Williams.
My vote is going to go for Stake.
Okay. And what makes you feel that way?
Because they have nothing going for them other than a outstandingly bright livery. They have two drivers who I don't think can get it done. And they're not Haas. So they're literally just second worst. I think Williams is going to have a much better season. I don't even know if I'm complacent saying Williams in 8th, if I'm being honest.
As in, you think that they might be higher?
I think Williams might be higher.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're definitely on the road for improvement over last year, but so is everybody else. And I think that just technologically, because they're so much further behind, I think they're going to be struggling to just stay ahead of everybody. But they've definitely tried to address some of the issues that they had last year, and that their car worked really well on one certain type of track,
right?
One with long straights and not a lot of medium and slow speed corners. So
I think with Williams, though, the fact that they're able to narrow things down is gonna help. They know what they're good at, they know what they're not good at, so they can focus just on the areas that need improvement instead of having to put together an overall package like a couple other teams.
Yeah, one of the things that does give me pause though is that just the driver feedback from testing was that their main goal, which I guess they did achieve through testing, was just to make the car drivable. So while all the other teams, I think, maybe not all of the other teams, but most of the other teams were refining their package and trying to make it better and faster. Whereas Williams, they were just trying to make their new concept, they're trying to find that baseline. So to me, they still have a lot of work to go. And
Logan Sargent was the only driver to have an issue, right? Didn't he spin out?
He spun. I think there was maybe Carlos.
Did Max spin at one point?
I don't know. I think maybe Checo, but
Logan was the first one to spin then.
Yeah, first
which
one,
was no surprise.
Yeah. Okay. So we can say maybe
Stake for me.
9th Stake, and then what do you say, 8th Williams?
I'm tempted to put Alpine in 8th.
Okay.
I think that they're having issues as a team.
Oh, for sure.
They haven't seemed to make any improvements. From what I heard, everything that they've tried just was lackluster, nothing really, nothing going for them. And I think that they're going to have a more contentious relationship between the two drivers this year. The fact that the company is a little bit more in shambles, and that there's a shakeup in the ownership group.
Yeah, and then
I was joking a few episodes about Rob McElhaney and Ryan Reynolds bringing some positivity to that team and maybe bringing some financial gain, but I don't think that it's actually going to benefit them. After watching testing, it just seems like nothing's happening there.
Well, after testing here, I have the tire corrected pace rankings from day 3, and they're more than a second back off of Red Bull, back in the pack with Sauber and Haas over a second. So, that's where they're at right now. They're in the back.
They've really fallen from grace from their Renault days.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that engine's a little behind the ball. I think they probably are lacking on some horsepower and probably some other things on their aero side. So
that's interesting. I wonder if they haven't really fully continued to develop that power unit because Renault's not a name in the sport anymore.
That's potential,
I mean, it's maybe a little bit of a sexy story stretch, but who knows?
Yeah, it's tough. So we got Alpine 8th, Williams up to 7th, hopefully making those new changes matter. So 6th place, I'm thinking V-Carb. You think
I think Aston Martin maybe.
Aston Martin.
It's a real toss-up for me between Aston Martin and V-Carb.
Yeah.
Because I think V-Carb can be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with everything that they've taken from the RB19. I think that I think that factory's doors are going to be a little bit more wide open this year too.
Yeah.
Because they both work out of the same factory in Milton Keynes, and it's supposed to be a complete separation. I think those doors are going to be a little bit more open as upgrades happen between both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yuki looks like he's going to have a good year.
Yeah.
I think Daniel's going to have a fine year.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at the other side, Aston Martin didn't finish strong. Their upgrade package wasn't good. They do have, their new testing facility. They do have a big financial backing. Who knows what I didn't, look at a whole lot of their testing numbers. Fernando Alonso, I think, is going to be looking for a big contract. Mm-hmm. But then Lance Stroll is always this outlier of is he going to show up? If he does show up, how well is he going to do? Is he going to be consistent? He was better last year with 2 broken wrists. Those were his best races.
Yeah, I think he struggled with the development that they did to the car. He as the changes happened, he wasn't quite following along with them.
It's not very malleable.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking at the pace ranking from day 3, RB's behind the Aston by 0.3 of a second. So, and Yuki said that
who put up their fastest time though? Was it Fernando?
Probably.
That's what I like. That's where this pack I think is going to get really tight from about 6 on. It's going to be a little bit.
Yeah, and if
6.54 is going to be tight, and then 4.32 is going to be tight.
Yeah, and if you're looking, this is constructor standings, right?
Yeah.
So it's about the driver pairing, I think.
Exactly.
Yuki and Daniel together
are a stronger pair
than Fernando and Lance. Yeah. So although Fernando could be having a great season, just right off the bat, Fernando day 1 in the car looked to me of the best of the field, right? Mm-hmm. It just looked like he was feeling comfortable. He was hitting the corners smooth, and it looked like they were in a good starting place, and then throughout testing, they were just kind of throwing different things at the car to see what happens. So I feel like they could be sneaky fast coming out the gate.
They could be, and remember, testing times do not matter. Yeah. They really don't. Mm-hmm. Practice times in Bahrain are actually, I think, going to be a closer look at what's going to happen.
Yeah. It should be noted that Yuki said that he feels like their V-Carb car this year is very much a continuation of what they had last year, had already started last year. So looking at that, you say, okay, will they just be able to carry that momentum through into this year? And looking at just how they ended the season in Abu Dhabi, they were kind of right up there with Aston. So
yeah,
I feel like it'll be a tight battle.
I would say advantage second half of the season is going to go to V-Carb.
Just because they have...
because of upgrade advantages, because of the sister team ties.
So do we say 6th Aston and 5th V-Carb?
I think part of my predictions are going to be a little bit of what I think is going to happen and a little bit of what I want to happen.
That's fine. Yeah.
A little bit of wishful thinking,
you have to be bold.
It's not going to be a whole lot of technical thought behind some of these things.
It's okay.
So I would say, let's go with Aston Martin 6th and then V-Carb 5th.
I love it. So 4th.
4th, is going to be Mercedes. This is where it's going to get tight.
Yeah.
This is going to get super, super tight.
Yeah, I agree. Lots of I think of the teams that we have whittled ourselves down to, the top 4, I think Mercedes potentially has the higher ceiling from where they're at right now, but how long is it going to take for them to get there? I feel like there's a lot of factors involved that, Lewis, you got to admit that this year he might not be as aggressive as he was last year, knowing that he's on his way out.
There's different ways to look at it, though. Lewis could show up and go, this is my last hurrah with the team that I helped build.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up and show out. I think Lewis is that type of guy, too.
Yeah,
to
he's
be
not
like,
gonna
let's
just
go
let
out
off.
with a bang. Let's go out on a high note instead of let's phone it in.
Yeah, but if they're struggling in mid-season, things aren't going his way, is
Maybe he just...
that 10% of him checking out
100%.
Could be the factor.
Absolutely. And I think the wheels are a little bit falling off at Mercedes. Like they're losing people in the factory and on the team left and right.
Yeah, things are not looking great. Let's see if Toto actually shows up to all the races this year and helps keep the team in line. I think for me in this debate over 3rd and 4th, I think McLaren's, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Just the vibe I got from watching the interviews with both drivers after each day, it seems that there's still a lot of ground to be made.
Yeah, it seemed like they didn't take all the momentum of the second half of their season last year and carry it into this. That what they brought isn't quite what they wanted and what fans and what we expected it to be.
It wasn't the improvement that they were looking for, and I think they were still struggling to find the right balance on the car. There were some what's the word? There were some inherent problems with the car last year or in the year before where the balance is kind of a little bit of a knife edge as has been described, where could be a little problematic for some of the drivers. But like we said a couple weeks ago, this is their first car fully developed in their new facility. So hopefully as the season rolls out, they kind of are able to get some of these upgrades a little quicker. They're able to solve some of these problems a little more efficiently than maybe in the past.
I get the feeling that McLaren is going to get it together, and that the vibes at their team, the driver pairing, it's going to be a little bit smoother. And because they've at Ferrari, they've got a little bit of a shakeup. I wouldn't fill that in quite yet. I'm not done.
Oh,
I think McLaren's going to be P2.
really?
Yeah. I think Ferrari's going to Ferrari. I think things are just going to get a little rocky. Maybe I'm hoping that with Carlos on his way out, he's going to challenge a little bit more. They're going to have a driver battle.
Oh, for sure.
A little bit more than the McLarens are going to have. The McLarens, I think, are going to work together a little bit better. And as a team, McLaren's similar to the V car versus Aston Martin. I think McLaren's going to just simply outpoint them. I think that Ferrari's pit team is still going to have issues this year. Like I said, Ferrari's going to Ferrari. So I'm not saying that they're going to be slow, but I think that they're just going to get slightly outpointed by McLaren.
Yeah, I think Carlos is going to turn it on next year. I think he's just going to be carrying the momentum. I'm trying to see.
Carlos made it look like they might have fired the wrong guy.
I mean,
he had the fastest time of all 3 days, did he not?
Yes, I think so. Not all 3 days. The day 2 and day 3 Ferrari were on top. He did it with a softer tire than what the Red Bull was on. He was on the C4 or something, which is not an actual tire that they race on that weekend in Bahrain. So not as much, you can't take a whole lot off of that. But, just looking at the numbers from last year, Carlos finished 6 points behind Charles. So very tight. I think, I know Charles had at least one DNF that was not, it was a weird.
An engine failure. I don't remember when it was. I know Carlos for sure had at least one because his car caught on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So Charles, I don't exactly remember.
Yeah, I mean, with the fire under his ass, I think Carlos can really put the fight to Chuck, and that's what I'm going to be most excited about this year. I want to see Carlos prove himself. I want to see him,
I think it's going to be one of the most interesting storylines of the season is like what Carlos is going to do with himself.
Mm-hmm.
How because he's fighting now for a seat potentially at Mercedes if he wants it. Like he might have
or Red Bull.
He might have his choice of where he wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
There is talks of him going to Red Bull. I don't know if you saw that little brunch meeting between Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, and Carlos Sainz Sr., which there's not much to look into. Carlos Sainz Sr. is himself a Red Bull athlete.
Yes.
Carlos Sainz Jr., the one we're talking about, was part of the Red Bull Junior team. So this could just be buddies chumming it up and the media going, oh, what's this? Or that could be a serious conversation. We don't know.
We could have a little family reunion on our hands.
Yeah. I think that Red Bull seat's going to be up for grabs based on just season performance this year alone.
Yeah, but, getting back to our standings, I think just after hearing both drivers talk, seeing the numbers, I feel like Ferrari definitely made big improvements from last year.
Mm-hmm.
They addressed, maybe not wholly, but somewhat they addressed their tire degradation issues, probably in exchange for some qualifying pace. So they may not have as much of advantage that they had last year in that space. But I think overall this year, they're in a much better position to give the fight to Red Bull. It's going to be a matter of, where that Red Bull is at right out the gate, So
yeah, it's gonna be wide open. But I also think that like compared to last year, they were really the only team that was even nipping at Red Bull's heels for the majority of the season.
It took a while for them to be able to do that, but yes.
Until McLaren stepped up, then we had a couple races that was like, oh shit, this McLaren might compete with Red Bull.
Yeah, but we're not. But that's that wasn't anywhere near as to like 2022 when Ferrari came out and like won.
Oh yeah, they won the first round. They won the first two races.
Yeah, so I think it could be maybe not quite to that same level, but I think they could see the parity close to that, like 2022 with Red Bull and Ferrari, but.
You can have McLaren at 3 and Ferrari at 2. I'm going to separate my list from yours, and I'm going to do a little bit of wishful thinking. I'm going to say McLaren is going to beat Ferrari this year.
Okay, maybe that can be one of your bold predictions for
for
2024. So I think Red Bull, obviously first. Don't really have much to say about that other than that the Christian Horner thing could be a bit of a distraction. But how much it will actually affect
driver
results?
And car performance? Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know the powers that be hate the whole drama and they want it to go away as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's something.
The crazy part is that the decision is going to be made by Red Bull GmbH or whatever
Mm-hmm.
It's not an FIA decision. It's not a Formula One decision.
No,
it's an internal decision. So that's what's really, really interesting. So like, if they do want to make this decision, it's and right or wrong, it's them shooting themselves in the foot. If they get it wrong, if they get it right, whatever, however you want to put that. But
I mean, it's Christian shooting himself in the foot. Apparently,
true. It's Christian shooting pictures of his penis potentially.
Oh my gosh. So. All right, I think we got to make our bold predictions now. So let's do 3 each. 2024 bold predictions. I'm going to start off. I'm going to say, we are kind of already touched on this. I'm going to say Mercedes does not win a race this year, and they're outside of the top 3, having a worse season than they did last year.
Absolutely. I agree with that. 100%. I'm going to say McLaren P2, finish the season.
Okay. Next one, I'm saying Carlos Sainz beats Charles Leclerc, driver standings.
I like it. I think that they're going to get a deep look and go, we might have gotten rid of the wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Lando Norris P2.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
I had really, really high hopes that Lando Norris was going to challenge for a world championship this year. That was going to be one of my bold predictions, but it's just not looking like it. I think he's going to just slightly miss it. But along with Lando Norris P2, I'm going to say he wins a race this year.
Okay, yeah.
He wins
Lando
it.
first win. That would be great to see.
Lando gets his first win.
I think that we will have at least one driver swap before the end of the year. So of the 20 drivers we're going to see at round 1,
Yeah.
at least one of them will be changed by the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll get somebody else on the grid. Not necessarily somebody new, but we might get somebody
just
else.
the fact that we came in to this year with no real changes from the end of last year, I think that leaves some room for something to happen, a little shakeup. And which team I think it might be? It could potentially be V-Carb with a different driver.
What are you thinking? I mean,
I don't know.
That could, if V-Carb gets a different driver, that could potentially mean that another team gets a different driver.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking Daniel Ricciardo goes to Red Bull?
It's possible. I don't know. I think they'd, of any of the teams willing to make a change mid-season, it's obvious that they're the one. They did it last year, so. But the circumstances are different, right? They don't have a rookie in there that's a little shaky yet to prove himself. But if there's like bigger drama that happens, somebody's not making it into Q3.
This is going to be a really interesting year, I think. I wanted to kind of talk about this for Checo and Max because they do have a new car concept. It's a clean slate for both of them.
Yeah.
This concept could work out for Checo better than the last few have worked out for him. I think this is his one real shot to solidify his place, not only at Red Bull, but on the F1 grid. And if he really wants to do it, this is his only, the first half of the season is his only chance to actually try to contend for a world championship.
Yeah, well,
is it going to happen? Probably not.
I don't know. I mean, it's been laid out that he kind of has to get second.
Or he's gone. Yeah,
he's gone.
I mean, it's the same stipulation as last year.
Yeah, and I think that alone is just a hard task for him to live up to. But I think it's possible if he keeps his head down. It kind of depends how the beginning of the season goes, because I think him getting that win early on last year kind of got to his head, and when he felt like he could really give the fight to Max, and when it started slipping away from him, I think it messed with him. So if he can get past that, I think we're in a good spot. I
have to do a third.
I have one last prediction question after this, but yeah.
I don't even have one lined up. Throw some scenarios out.
Okay, so we both are in agreement. Red Bull is going to win Constructors Championship. Probably Max Verstappen.
Fourth World Championship.
How many races does Red Bull win in 2024? So there's 30 races, right? You got 24 rounds, 6 of which are sprints. So of the 30 rounds, how many does
Red Bull win
as a team? Yeah.
22.
22. Okay. I was going to say at least 20. So
I was going to go 20, but then I'm going to edge it because it's Max Verstappen, and over time he's just going to get more and more comfortable in that car and go 22. I do think Ferrari will win 1 or 2, whether it be Grand Prix or Sprint. McLaren will have their hand in that basket too. And then maybe like a one-off from an Aston Martin if Fernando puts in a crazy weekend. But I am in agreement that Mercedes won't get one.
Ferrari there's still too many unanswered questions. The tire degradation, their strategy, that kind of stuff.
I have a prediction.
Okay.
I have my third. My third bold prediction. Gunther Steiner will have a team job by the end of the season.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He will be hired by a new team or an old team.
Okay.
He might go back home also. We might see a little bit of a Gunther Steiner reunion at Red Bull.
Isn't he French?
He's German.
Is he German? I thought he was French.
He's German.
Let me see.
I believe. I mean, are you thinking that he could go to Alpine and
he's
head
Italian.
up that team?
He's Italian American.
I thought he was German.
He's Italian. We've been over this before.
Oh.
So I don't know. Maybe I was thinking maybe Alpine, but he's I don't know. I mean, there's been talks about the Audi thing, but I don't know.
I think if Christian Horner gets the axe, maybe an intermittent role for Gunther Steiner there, just to be a little bit of a placeholder.
I mean,
like an intermediate head coach type of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it would bring some fans back to Red Bull,
Yeah.
I think so. All right, any other final thoughts before we sign off?
I don't know. How do you think the Bahrain Grand Prix is going to
go? I think the cars will be racing.
Bold.
And I think I think Red Bull's got it out the gate, honestly.
Yeah, I think
I think it's a 1-2.
It's probably going to be a Red Bull 1-2. That's a bummer. I don't think it's going to be as big of a gap as round 1 was last year for Red Bull, though. I think the teams are going to be tighter. It's going to be like a 10-second gap, I think, at the finish line.
Yeah, I think that's doable, and I think it's going to be probably 4 or 5 rounds until we see Ferrari fully having their act together. So
yeah,
by Japan, I think.
I still think it's going to be McLaren, but we'll see.
Hey, we certainly will, won't we?
All right, guys, that has been Barely Qualified, an F1 podcast. Next time we talk to you guys will be post Bahrain Grand Prix. Peace.
Peace.